Mommy, can I still have a birthday party? 4-year-old Harper's voice was so small, so hopeful, it nearly broke Mallory's heart in two. Mallory Bennett knelt on the toy store floor, her worn jeans pressing against the cold tiles as she gently cupped her daughter's face. Behind them, rows of Barbie dolls stood like an impossible dream in their perfect pink boxes. Baby, I can't afford a Barbie for your birthday this year. I'm so sorry. The words tasted like failure on her tongue. Harper's blue eyes, the same shade as her father's had been, searched her mother's face. Then, with the kind of wisdom no 4-year-old should possess, she wrapped her small arms around Mallory. It's okay, Mommy. We have each other. That's better than toys. Mallory held her daughter tightly, fighting back tears in the middle of the store. 29 years old, widowed for 2 years, working 2 jobs just to keep their tiny apartment, this wasn't how she'd imagined motherhood. David's sudden heart attack had stolen not just her husband, but every plan they'd made. The life insurance barely covered the funeral, the savings account emptied with medical bills. Now she cleaned office buildings at night and worked retail during the day, sleeping 4 hours if she was lucky. "Ma'am, are you finding everything all right?" The voice was male, professional, but something in its tone made Mallory look up through her tears. The man standing before her wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He was young, early 30s perhaps, with dark hair and the kind of presence that suggested authority. But his eyes held an unexpected gentleness as he watched Harper wipe her mother's tears with chubby fingers. We're fine," Mallory said quickly, standing and smoothing her uniform shirt. The name tag on the man's lapel read, Ethan Callaway, CEO, Callaway Enterprises. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just any man. This was the Ethan Callaway, whose family owned half the shopping district, including this toy store. "Forgive me," Ethan said softly, crouching to Harper's eye level. "I couldn't help but overhear. Your birthday is coming up?" Harper nodded shyly, then looked at her mother for permission to speak. Mallory's throat was too tight to respond. "I'm turning 4, but Mommy works very hard, and birthdays are expensive." Ethan's expression shifted. Something Mallory couldn't quite read passed across his face. Pain, maybe, or recognition. "You know what?" he said gently. "I think every child deserves something special on their birthday. Would it be all right if I helped?" "No," Mallory said immediately, her pride flaring. "We don't need charity. We're fine." But Ethan stood slowly, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that stopped her protests. "It's not charity. It's something I need to do. Please, let me explain." Against her better judgment, Mallory nodded. "My parents died when I was 8. They left me money, but no amount of wealth could fill that emptiness. I was raised by nannies and boarding schools. I never had someone look at me the way your daughter looks at you, like she's her whole world." His voice caught slightly. "I've spent years building an empire, but I've forgotten what really matters, until right now." Mallory's defenses wavered. She recognized that loneliness in his eyes, the kind that money couldn't touch. "There's something else," Ethan continued, his voice dropping. "I'm in a relationship with someone who loves what I can provide more than who I am. Last week, she threw a fit because I suggested we volunteer at a children's shelter instead of flying to Paris for the weekend. Watching you with Harper, I see what love actually looks like, and it's humbling." Harper tugged at Ethan's sleeve. "Why are you sad?" she asked with a child's blunt honesty. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I've been looking for happiness in all the wrong places." What happened next, Mallory would remember for the rest of her life. Ethan didn't just buy Harper one Barbie, he arranged for the store manager to close the toy aisle for 20 minutes. He told Harper she could choose 3 toys, anything she wanted. But more than that, he sat on the floor with them, listening as Harper explained the difference between Princess Barbie and Veterinarian Barbie with absolute seriousness. "This one helps animals," Harper said earnestly, holding up a doll with a tiny stethoscope, "like how Mommy helps me when I'm sick." "Your mommy sounds pretty special," Ethan said, glancing at Mallory. "She is," Harper declared. "She's the best mommy in the whole world." As they moved through the aisle, Mallory noticed something unexpected. Ethan wasn't performing some CEO act of benevolence. He was genuinely engaged, genuinely present. When Harper couldn't reach a toy on the top shelf, he lifted her onto his shoulders without hesitation. When she worried about him spending too much money, he knelt down and said, "Sometimes, Harper, the best thing we can do with what we have is share it with people who remind us why it mattered in the first place." At the register, the total came to $217. Mallory's heart sank. That was nearly what she made in 2 days, but Ethan handed over his card without blinking. Then, as the cashier bagged the toys, Ethan did something that truly surprised her. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Jessica, I need you to cancel my dinner reservations tonight. Actually, cancel all my plans with Victoria, permanently." He paused, listening. "Because I just met a 4-year-old who taught me more about character in 20 minutes than I've learned in years, and I realized I've been wasting time with someone who doesn't understand what any of this is for." When he hung up, Mallory stared at him. "You just ended your relationship?" "I should have done it months ago," Ethan admitted, "but I didn't have the clarity until now. Sometimes it takes witnessing real love to recognize counterfeit affection." Outside the store, the late afternoon sun painted everything golden. Harper clutched her bag of toys like treasure, but she seemed more interested in Ethan than in the dolls. "Mr. Ethan," she said carefully, "can you come to my birthday party? It's just going to be me and Mommy and maybe Mrs. Parker from next door. But you're nice." Mallory opened her mouth to protest, but Ethan spoke first. "I would be honored," he said seriously, "if your mom says it's okay." Mallory looked at this wealthy stranger who'd shown them more kindness in 1 hour than she'd experienced in 2 hard years. Something told her this wasn't just about toys or pity. This was about connection, real human connection that transcended circumstances. "Saturday at 2, she heard herself say. "Our place isn't fancy, but—" "It doesn't need to be," Ethan interrupted gently. "It just needs to be full of love, and I suspect it is." The birthday party was small, simple, perfect. Ethan arrived with a cake from the best bakery in town, but spent the afternoon on the floor playing with Harper and her new dolls. He laughed more in those 3 hours than he had in months. When Harper accidentally spilled juice on his expensive shirt, he just smiled and said, "It'll wash out. Besides, this is my favorite shirt now. It's the one I was wearing when I met a little girl who reminded me what joy looks like." As the party wound down and Harper fell asleep surrounded by wrapping paper, Ethan and Mallory stood in the small kitchen, speaking in soft voices. "Thank you," Mallory said quietly, "not just for the gifts, for seeing us, for treating Harper like she matters." "She does matter," Ethan replied. "You both do. And if I'm being honest, I needed this as much as she needed that Barbie, maybe more." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've spent years accumulating wealth while becoming emotionally bankrupt. Today reminded me that the richest people aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who know how to love without condition, like you love Harper, like she loves you." Mallory's eyes filled with tears. "After David died, I thought we'd lost everything. But Harper still finds joy in the smallest things. She still believes the world is good. I've been so focused on what I can't give her that I forgot to see what I could." "You give her everything that matters," Ethan firmly said. "A Barbie doll is just plastic and fabric, but a mother who kneels on a toy store floor and apologizes with her whole heart because she can't afford it, that's real wealth. That's the kind of love that shapes a human being." On the worn couch, Harper stirred in her sleep, clutching the veterinarian Barbie. Even in dreams, she smiled. "Mommy?" she murmured without waking. "We're lucky, aren't we?" Mallory walked over and gently brushed hair from her daughter's forehead. "Yes, baby, we're very lucky."
Ethan watched them, and in that moment, he understood something profound. Kindness wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about showing up. It was about seeing another person's humanity and honoring it. It was about using whatever resources you had, time, attention, compassion, to remind someone that they mattered. He'd spent his whole life building an empire while forgetting to build connections. But standing in this tiny apartment, watching a mother and daughter who had so little, yet gave so much, he felt wealthy for the first time in years. Before leaving, Ethan knelt beside the couch where Harper slept. "Thank you," he whispered, knowing she couldn't hear him. "Thank you for reminding me why any of this matters." At the door, Mallory touched his arm gently. Will we see you again?" Ethan smiled, the first truly genuine smile he'd worn in longer than he could remember. "If you'll have me, I have a lot to learn about what really counts, and I think you and Harper are excellent teachers." As he walked to his car, Ethan thought about his parents, gone so long ago. They'd built their company believing wealth was a tool for creating opportunity and connection. Somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten that. But today, a 4-year-old and her extraordinary mother had given him something no business deal ever could. They'd given him back his humanity. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in the smallest packages. Sometimes a child's birthday party in a cramped apartment teaches us more about abundance than any boardroom ever could. And sometimes, when we're brave enough to acknowledge our emptiness, kindness finds us in the most unexpected places and reminds us that we're all just people, searching for connection, hoping to matter, learning that the truest wealth is measured not in what we possess, but in how deeply we allow ourselves to care.